Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Wars in the Stars, number 86, episode number 86. Today, I am joined by a new co host, a new addition. I mentioned this last week on the year in review stream. We got Stormy Davis here. Uh, you know, um, Alex hadn't been getting back to me, for about a month or so now. So I was like, hey, you know what? I need to add somebody else to this just because I think it's just boring if you just listen to me talk the whole time. Um, I'm gonna let him take it away and introduce himself and talk a little bit about what he's excited to talk about here in 2023 or just anything really. So I'm gonna let him take it away here. Go ahead, man.
Well, hello, as you said, I'm Stormy Davis. Let's see, projects I'm excited for. I'm not gonna lie, that's kind of hard. I'm a really big indie guy, so I like a lot of indie films now. I'm not really as
Okay.
big as I was last year into like franchises, like Indiana Jones and stuff. I'm looking forward to Spider Verse, of course. Stuff like that. But mainly like indie horror stuff is what I'm into. Like Megan's
Oh,
coming out. I'm
okay.
seeing that tomorrow.
Okay. That's interesting. That's neat. That's neat for sure. Um, what's like the last? Well, I've really come into love with like the Knives Out franchise now.
Oh yeah, I
Um,
love that last one.
Glass Onion, I really enjoy Glass. I still like the first one more, I think, but like Daniel Craig and I'm not sure your thoughts on the Last Jedi, but I feel like everything else Ryan Johnson touches is good,
Hmm.
and of course, we got the Last Jedi, but whatever. So I guess first off, we'll discuss the Bad Batch. So if you've been following the channel for a while, you'll know that this is the first show that we ever covered. I believe we started the podcast a couple weeks before the premiere episode. Obviously, I'm a huge Clone Wars fan. I was in that. I was a child. I would. You were the same age around uh, when the Clone Wars was coming out. Then Rebels. Rebels. We were a little bit older, right? Probably
Yeah.
it was like middle school or high school when it ended. And then now we got the Bad Batch, obviously. So like the trifecta of Dave Filoni animation projects. I'll go to you first. We talked a little bit off air, but just give your like overall thoughts on like the show, the first season. What did you think? And yeah.
All right. Well, first season I do feel had a little too much filler. I liked it overall. I thought it was good. It felt really like early Clone Warsy, like seasons 1 through 2 of Clone Wars. But like it was good. It had some really strong moments, but really weak moments. Like the 2 episodes of Cad Bane were done amazing. The pilot episode was done amazingly. Then there's just some episodes like where they go to fight like bugs in a cave. Like it was just so random what they tried to do, and overall, I just feel we need to go in a less filler direction with the Bad Batch, more story focused. Because I think there's still like a lot you could do too with these clones. Like that's not just them going from point A to B to do this mission and get this reward.
Right, yeah, I 100% agree. It's like the big problem I had, and I rewatched season one before season two came out, and it just like I felt like every week I was watching like The Mandalorian in animation. Like I was watching the Hunter and Omega. It was like mercenary takes on child, because Bad Batch came out like summer of 21, so it
Yeah,
was like a few months after Mando season two, and it's like, oh, I feel like I'm watching a similar show here, because it was mostly the Hunter and Omega show, and Tech and Echo were really like devoid of any sort of
yeah,
character arc. It was just like, and Echo is huge, right? Echo is really the oldest out of those characters, and the fact that he's been around since like season one of the Clone Wars, right?
yeah,
Um, so it's like it was really weird. And then Tech had like no arc, and it was odd. It felt like the show was kind of saved by cameos, sort of.
yeah.
Um, I mean,
But yeah,
I like
When Cad Bane came on, that was like I haven't freaked out in a long time. Like I freaked out more at him coming in the Bad Batch than he was in Boba Fett. That I was like, ooh,
yeah, it was pretty wild. It was pretty nuts because we didn't know at that point if he had survived, right? Because there was
yeah,
that deleted scene of Boba like killing him, but that was never it's never been officially canon. But like, yeah, him coming back was pretty big. I liked the finale with Camino and stuff. That stuff was good. Um, but yeah, I was just my hopes for this season were like more of a character arc for like the other like members of the Bad Batch, even Wrecker. I feel like Wrecker they had the thing where he went like um kind of like Sentry or with Hulk, where like they would lose their mind, like Sentry with the Void or like Hulk when he would
Yeah.
like Hulk out. They kind of did that with him, and then he just had no arc after that. So I was kind of hoping that this season there'd be a little bit of an arc or a little bit of trials with those characters, and it seems like they're we'll get into it, but they're setting up some sort of conflict with Echo and Hunter and conflicting ideas and stuff like that. But yeah, that was my thoughts on the first season. So I guess we'll get into now. We'll just talk generally about the first two episodes. We don't have to go detail by detail.
Hmm.
What did you think of both of them?
Uh, I thought they were pretty weak compared to season one's pilot. Season one had a really good pilot with Order 66 and everything, and the clones like kind of discovering, like we're discovering with the clones, this new world. This episode, it felt like we just picked up right after what nobody really enjoyed. It was just, oh my gosh, on another mission, yay! So happy. It's just same thing. I thought what Dooku's plan was it Serrano, I think that's what it's called.
Yeah, I think it's Serrano. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Serrano was cool. It was nice seeing that planet again. I was like when they went inside his his little office, like, oh my gosh, I know that place. Yeah, that was that was fun and everything. But like overall, it just it's just another mission. But like this time the mission goes terribly wrong.
Yeah, yeah. I 100% agree. It's like very weird. Like I kind of felt like with Sid, they were always setting up the idea that Sid could possibly turn on them, and it doesn't feel like they're gonna do that.
Yeah.
Again, it's another thing. It's a problem I even have with Rebels. I think Rebels a lot of the time. I don't know what your thoughts are on Rebels, but like I I don't like it. Like I don't like Rebels at all. And
Oh.
I think yeah, I I'm not a huge fan. I think he gets saved a lot by Clone Wars characters and that sort of thing,
Mhm.
and Thrawn and stuff like that. But I think like they both run into the same problem that they're too narrow in scope. That they're trying to focus on this one crew, and it could get very stale. Like Rebels, the first two seasons, especially, it's like very stale. And I feel the same way with the Bad Batch. It's just like
Mhm.
really every week. I mean, it's kind of cool. Okay, Sereno, like Dooku's war chest.
Yeah.
Um, they have new armor. I guess that's another thing.
Yeah.
But like that's for toys. That's like whatever.
Yeah.
Who really cares?
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was. It's just I don't know. I thought the first episode was okay. I like the second one more for sure.
Yeah.
Um, there's like some interesting things. Like I think understanding um, because a lot of people make this mistake with like Dooku that like people will like weirdly sympathize with him
Hmm.
because like he was anti-Republic and anti-Jedi, which I can understand that sentiment and understand like their dogmatic views. But like Dooku was also a murderer. Like he's not a
Yeah.
good
So
person.
what I found weird is that earlier, like last year, they did Tales of Jedi to kind of like show the good in Dooku, and now you
Right.
guys are kind of just like counteracting that character development. It's like, oh no, he's just bad guys. Like, didn't you just try to put us through that? It wasn't all bad.
Right.
And I
Right.
get turning
Yeah.
fully to the dark side changes him, but like you guys just kind of established that he was like he's not that bad of a guy, and like you kind of get what he's done.
Right. Yeah. It's weird. It's very weird. And then it's almost like Dooku like such a weird character. It was cool that like we got that tie into him in this episode, I think for sure. Because we only see Sereno, I think 3 or 4 times maybe in the Clone Wars. I think with him and Savage, him when like
The,
Palpatine like chokes him out halfway across the
the
galaxy,
Night
and I
Sisters
think
too. He fought Asajj and everybody in there. That was a good fight.
yeah, yeah, that was good. That was definitely good. Um, but yeah, that was definitely cool to see. It's just I don't know. Like I always like I feel like with the show when anytime I talk about it, it's like I can only talk about it for like 15 or 20 minutes. I'm like, oh, we're just there's nothing to talk about. But I think with
Yeah.
this episode, I really like to see the perspective of that older man and how he felt about Dooku and the war in general. I guess it was really interesting to see, like, oh, well, Sereno and their technology and their planet, I guess, kind of like influenced the Separatists and their quests to try to take over the Republic. But that's kind of something you could figure out. You didn't really need
Yeah.
that explained. So yeah, there just wasn't again, there just wasn't a lot of substance. So yeah.
Yeah, I get it. And so they had like the old man. He had like this chest thing that like Tech opened. They like never got back to that. Did you notice that? He was like helping him with like this ancient boxing. I was like, oh, okay, that's just over.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, because Tech mentions that it's like, oh, this is like separatist equipment, and then the guy, the older man from Sereno, is just like, well, it's technically Sereno, but the separatists just used it.
Hmm.
And then they never got it back. I thought it was gonna be something where like, oh, they didn't get anything from the war chest, but oh, they got old
Yeah.
tactical secrets or something like that. I don't know.
But no, if you think about it
Something
too,
dumb.
this episode's like kind of useless. Then if they didn't get anything. There was no character development for no characters. They didn't get anything. It was kind of like,
Right.
what was the point then of what was like if you skip this episode, you're not gonna miss anything.
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's also like I think for with season one, we can kind of go back to that. Is like season one for me, like the best stuff was the Camino stuff and the stuff with Crosshair. Anytime he was on screen, I thought the show was elevated. I thought it was much more interesting and compelling. Um, and like you don't get any of that. It like Crosshair is not even mentioned really. He's not
Yeah,
even in
they
the
just
episode.
they just showed that like stupid admiral. I was just like, oh, he's back. He should. I feel like he's just a placeholder character for like a cameo. Like he's just gonna get replaced by like Thrawn or something. Like Tarkin's gonna take like a bigger role because like
Right,
he's just
Rampart.
like
Yeah.
yeah. I'm like, what is this man doing here? And the way he just like killed that one command, I was like, oh, okay. It's like the Empire's just full of backstabbers apparently, and they just allow that to just slide.
Yeah, yeah. It's really interesting. Like with that with the Ramparts, I thought that was good because again, like Rampart was like very anti clone trooper
Yeah,
in season one, especially like Tarkin was too. And again, I wish it was kind of like you were saying, I wish it was just Tarkin instead. I think it would have been much more interesting if it was Tarkin.
yeah,
But again, it just shows like the corruption within the Empire. Um, the idea that it's why they try to portray this idea of power and um idea of security, right? That's what the whole idea of having an empire is the idea that there's security over freedom.
yeah,
Within the empire itself, it's very unsecured. It's very much you act on your own instincts to survive and move your way up, and that's what Rampart does.
yeah,
But that's like it's at the end of the episode. It's like, okay, you got me on a cliffhanger, but what did you do within the episode that really makes me like really like there's just been no hook. Like, you know what I'm saying? There's just
yeah.
I think me and you would agree there's just been no hook at all.
Me too. I like to the clone trooper guy. I like to they made the clones very tactical. Like clones weren't stupid. Like clones thought like really well. It's just like damn, why would you replace these guys with stormtroopers? Like I know it's cheaper, but like it makes you feel like dang, like these guys are really it. I was like, damn. I was kind of like scared for the Bad Batch. Like especially Tech for one point. I was like, hold up, we might have some stakes here because the clone troopers know what to think.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I'm actually glad I will get into some positives because I don't want to be like ultra like pessimistic here, but like that was actually compelling because it gave Tech a little bit more to do, right? Because
Mhm.
usually it's like Tech's like fix this electronical thing now, make a quippy joke here.
Yeah,
Um, Instead, he actually like he had to overcome like a physical ailment, a physical injury, and
yeah,
actually showed like his capabilities as a fighter as well, which is something we haven't seen.
yeah,
So that was like interesting. Like it was something different. But again, there's no real arc with that. It's just just an episode itself where he
yeah.
has to
Also,
figure it out.
yeah, so I do feel too that like Tech, like I'm happy him and Echo both because like they didn't really have too much to shine in the first season. They got a little bit more to shine this episode, but like I feel like Tech now is getting overshadowed by Omega because like it seems like Omega is just doing everything that Tech's doing. Like she was just like, oh, I found this part. I found this part. I was like, dang, you're taking away Tech's only character trait. His only character trait's being stolen from him.
Omega, yeah, I know it's weird because like the first season, I felt like Omega like all the time was just the moral compass. Like she always had the right answer. I'm just like, what? Why does
Yeah,
she always have to have the right answer? Just like, oh, it was weird. I don't know. She is like the thing that's interesting about Omega. It's not like her connectiveness to the Bad Batch. It's really, what's the deal with her? She's a girl, but she's a carbon copy of Django's DNA. She's practically Boba.
Mhm.
So the whole intrigue to me was, and I was a big theorist that, oh, she's got to be in the book of Boba Fett, she's got to live, that type of thing. That obviously didn't happen. But like my thing is like still like she has to like I feel like she has to cross paths with Boba at some point. I feel like that's the
Yeah.
main draw with that character. It's nothing she does with this cast of characters and that sort of thing. My thing is like when she ultimately gets to be like on the scene with she's got to meet Boba at some. But they have to do that.
Yeah, there's no
They
way
can't
they
just do
don't.
that. They can't just not do that. So like that's really the draw for that character. But yeah, I would agree with you. I think we would agree that like Tech has a little bit to do in this episode, but it's not something that would be like extrapolated out into a larger, big arc, that sort of
Yeah.
thing.
That's what I'm happy to for Echo this episode. I'm happy Echo actually had something to do. Like he was just the whole of season when he was just sitting around. Oh, Tech, can you hack this for us? Oh, sorry, Echo, can you hack this for us? Oh yeah, sure, yeah, I got you guys. Anything else? No, no, you're good. Go back in the corner.
Yeah, that's right. Um, yeah, and again, I want to get your thoughts on this because I kind of noticed this. Like, it seems like through trailers and through these first two episodes, they kind of set up this idea that there's going to be a conflict kind of between Echo and Hunter. Like this idea that Echo, and it's kind of even established in season one a little bit, that Echo wants to go and fight the Empire head on, and
Yeah.
Hunter wants to do his best to protect Omega, right? So I kind of want to get your thoughts on, do you think there's going to be kind of a civil war within the Bad Batch itself? I mean, not like an actual fight, but with a conflict of ideologies that may lend to the Bad Batch splitting up during the season. I feel like that would spice things up. I want to get your thoughts on that sort of thing.
I could see that. To me, right now, what I'm seeing is that Echo wants the interesting direction for the show, while Hunter just wants to stick to his season one. Where it's like, no, I want Echo's. I like Echo's vision. Like, we need to go do something. It's kind of like I would kind of like them to be like a Domino Squad. I think is what they were. Not Domino Squad. What were the Delta Squad? I think is what they were. The Commandos, where they kind of
Yes.
sent on random missions. They like kind of like work with the Republic, and they get sent on like exclusive missions. That I feel like would be like a cool direction they could go for this show. But like Hunter's out here like, no, let's just. I want to do more things for Sid. If you want to be a stay-at-home dad, you take Omega, you go off world. Let the Bad Batch do something interesting.
Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting, and it's also because the base on Hoth. It's somebody I can't remember who it was, but there's been people who theorized online. The base on Hoth is called Echo Base, so a lot of people have theorized that um, Echo was like a found or not like a founded member, but a part of the rebellion at one point. We know that Gregor and Wolf have their chips out,
Mm-hmm.
and they're around during the time of Rebels. So I think it'd be like interesting if, um, and I think it would make more sense if Echo went back with Rex, just kind of tying that whole story that we had in the Clone Wars, where like the first time we meet Echo is he is with Rex, right?
Mm-hmm.
So on the Rishi Moon in season one of Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Um, oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah, so I think the most possible situation with Echo is because obviously they made an oopsie. They didn't know Echo was going to be alive for Rebels. That's why it's not in Rebels. So what I could see is that Echo maybe possibly leads to Bad Batch, works with Rex. We could see him or like hear that he doesn't make out of one mission, and that's how they get stranded. Like Rex, Gregor, and Wolf, they get all stranded on that one planet, but Echo doesn't make it or something like that. Because I feel like there's no other direction for Echo to go story wise than go fight with Rex because that's what he really wants to do, but it doesn't make sense because he's not going to be with Rex by the time we see him in Rebels. So what I see is him going with Rex. They do a couple of missions together, but Echo ultimately dies. It could be like a Hoth mission, Echo base and everything. They get stranded, where we see him in Rebels, and that's why we don't see Echo because he died. Because I don't
Yeah,
see Echo sticking with the Bad Batch, to be honest with you. Like with what he wants to do, if they don't agree with him.
yeah, I agree with that. I always thought it was weird that when they did in the Clone Wars that he left with them. I always thought that was weird. I thought it was weird in general that I mean Star Wars is obviously infamous for bringing characters back from the dead.
Yeah.
But I always thought it was weird, like because that moment in the Clone Wars when he dies on I can't remember the prison that he could that they break out
Yeah. There's the one
that
with
Jedi
Tarkin.
from. Yeah, I
It
was
was
like,
such
yeah,
a
I was
big
Tarkin's
moment.
like first appearance in the Clone Wars, I believe.
Yeah.
And I will never forget the moment when like Echo gets killed, and it's just like it's a big moment. It's played up as a big moment. The Citadel, that's what it's called, the
Yeah.
Citadel arc. It's played up as a big moment for fives, obviously. And that's another thing too with Echo. It's like they don't like mention like fives. They mentioned them once in the first season.
Thing too, they don't
Um,
mention any Echo as PT. Like he should have PTSD or something. He ain't got nothing. He's just like, oh man, I was tortured for years, lost everybody I knew. Man, I'm all good, bro. Let's get back to the mission. It's like, no, bro. Like you should be like,
he's a cybernetic now, man.
yeah,
He's that's another thing. Um, yeah, it's weird. I feel like it'd be interesting if they had Echo like, oh, when Rex, we obviously know Rex is gonna be in this season. He goes off with Rex for a little bit, and then he comes back and helps a Bad Batch out, and then maybe he leaves permanently after this season. Or I think this will probably be the last season, or I hope it is, kind of, because the show kind of gets repetitive.
yeah.
So yeah, I think that's something that's really interesting. That we could see moving forward. So I don't know. Do you got anything else you want to talk about from these two episodes? Because I got a couple more questions, but I want to see if there's anything you wanted to discuss.
Um, don't think so. I mean, I like seeing the group back together. I like Omega's action. I like how she's more capable of doing stuff now. I
Mm.
like seeing Omega like doing all this stuff. A small nitpick I had too was when they knocked out that one clone and they like left him in there, and they're like, "Oh, he's gonna have to report in." Why couldn't Echo just put on the helmet and report in like he sounds like a basic clone? He could have put on the helmet and been like, "Yo, blah 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 blah. I'm gonna go check this out. Thought I heard something. I'll be with y'all like later." Like he just didn't say anything. It's like, oh, okay,
Yeah, it was really weird. I was like, when I first saw it, I was like, the like text like, oh, he's gonna report it. I'm like, Echo literally has the voice. Just
yeah,
have him do it. Any of you could have really done it and got away with it.
yeah,
Uh, it's like that was weird. Sometimes I will say Dooku having that big of a war chest was interesting. I'm not surprised, but it's like, whoa, whoa. It's like three whole shiploads of. I was like,
yeah. I know. I know he was like,
damn, bro.
I don't know. I didn't think too like Dooku would rob people like that. I thought he had more dignity than that. It's like, oh, he robbed this from other ones. I was like, oh, I thought Dooku had more dignity than that. But okay,
Yeah, yeah. I guess. So my fault. My question would be: so this episode kind of ends with like Rampart shooting. I believe the guy's name was Wilco, Captain or Commander Wilco, I think his name
yeah.
was. And next week we know the episode is Clone Conspiracy. Episode 3 is called Clone Conspiracy, and I believe like it's gonna feature Crosshair,
Yes,
feature
that sounds like a
Cody.
Crosshair episode.
It sounds like Crosshair, and even possibly Commander Cody. So, I kind of want to ask you, what do you want to see next week with that title, Clone Conspiracy? What's the big what's the big deal with this episode, and what do you hope to see?
Well, it sounds like I feel like the whatever I forgot the admiral's name. That's how much I don't like his character. But yeah, the admiral's gonna try to be keeping tabs on Crosshair now, because like he's gonna think maybe he could think he's been working with the Bad Batch, which
Mm.
I'd be thinking that too. Like, oh, he said that he died. He put that in his report that like they died. So I think it's gonna be him mainly like keeping tabs on Crosshair, us catching up with Crosshair, and how like the admiral guy now thinks like there's a conspiracy, but like with Crosshair and possibly
Yeah,
other things.
that's definitely something that I want to see for sure, and I also kind of like don't want to see the Bad Batch, like kind of do with saying like what they did with the Book of Boba Fett, where like no, they had 2 episodes devoted to the Mandalorian.
Mhm.
Kind of have this episode be devoted to Crosshair and whatever's going on in that story.
I mean,
Um,
Crosshair is the most interesting character in my eyes than all of them. He has the least development, but you see the potential with the character.
right. Plus, he's also like, it's a big problem I have with like Rebels. Is Rebels has like too many villains too quickly. Like it's Callus, then
Mhm.
it's the Grand Inquisitor, and then you go to Vader, and then Tarkin. It's like whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah,
And then like with this show, like it just works with having Crosshair as the villain and like keeping him as the villain. You can have your like one-off villain of the week type of deal,
yeah,
but like having Crosshair as the overarching like villain that can combat the Bad Batch's abilities. Plus, he's just like you were saying, it's the most compelling.
yeah,
Uh, he was always the most interesting in season 1. Him taking the chip out, like that sort of thing, I thought was always interesting. And then I think next week I agree. I want to see again what always interested me last season was like the phasing out of the clone troopers into the stormtroopers. How is that story progressing? Catching up with old clones like Cody, something like that. Rampart keeping tabs on Crosshair, I think, is something definitely very interesting. And I guess from the case of the Bad Batch, if they do focus on them, is again more development. I think again establishing like a conflict almost within the Bad Batch between like Echo and the rest of them. Like Echo being like, we can't keep doing this. We're not, because Sid tells him in this episode, if you score on this mission, you can be free forever, right?
Mhm.
I need Echo to be like in this episode coming up, like, yo, we can't keep doing this forever. We're just living like basically paycheck to paycheck, and we're not fighting. We're not fighting head on the Empire. We're kind of dodging them. And yeah, I kind of need that conflict to continue because there's nothing really else compelling about the
Yeah,
show,
so
being
said
honest.
you're not interested in any of the Bad Batch because it seems like the showrunners aren't interested in the Bad Batch themselves.
And it's really weird, you know. I know Filoni doesn't write or for this show. He just supervises. I mean,
Yeah, he's
Filoni's
like
busy.
producer.
Filoni's wicked busy, right? Because he's the head. He's technically the head creative there now. He's just
Yeah,
he,
streaming. Yeah.
yeah, it's just everything. Everything goes through him. So he wrote Ahsoka. He just got done. They got done a few months ago shooting Ahsoka. He's obviously working on Favreau right now with Skeleton Crew, and so he's wicked busy. There's no way he could write. And I feel like sometimes with these episodes, I'm like, huh, because Filoni's really good at doing like the wild stuff, right? Filoni did Mortis, obviously. He did the World Between Worlds. Like Filoni's really good with that stuff. Um, but yeah, I'm really excited. I want to learn more about what Rampart's doing, that sort of thing. If they heavily focus on that, I think we'll have a stronger episode. I mean, for the 2 episode premiere, I don't think it was bad. Like I'd give it like 7.5, maybe. Like
I got a
if I
six
could
and a half on it.
6.5. Yeah. It's not terrible. Like I'm
It's
more
watchable.
generous, I would say, in general with my rankings or like when I rate stuff. But like when I initially watch, I'm like, it's all right. It's not the best thing I've watched, but it's not like bad. Like
Yeah,
that's what I always say about this show is like it's not good. It's not great. Like Clone
it's
Wars great.
watchable.
It's watchable. It's satisfying. Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair thing to say. So yeah, that's gonna do it for the first 2 episodes of Bad Batch. We'll now move into some Ahsoka rumors. So this is coming to us from MakingStarWars.net. Jason Ward. He discusses. Let's see. Okay, that's good. He discusses the fact that Thrawn's going to have some like stormtroopers. Here, we'll get to it. Uh, these stormtroopers with reforged like armor. Um, and they will use like a gold or silver to mend the broken pieces of the stormtrooper helmets. Yeah, as you can see here, he says Star Wars Ahsoka will riff on this aesthetic. Most of the stormtroopers uh, have been destroyed, their armor obliterated, much like Kylo's helmet. However, instead of the red veins through the rebuilt armor, like we see with Kylo's helmet in The Rise of Skywalker, these troopers will have been described as golden cracks or yellow veins running through their exterior. And a couple weeks back, or a week or so back, um, they've discussed making Star Wars. He's very good at the stuff he does. I'm not going to doubt that this stuff is accurate because this stuff is like too specific to be like made up, kind of.
Yeah.
And he's right on the money with most of the stuff. He talks about like that these are like Night Sisters from a new place. They call it. He's calling it. He's describing it as the new beyond almost, and he's saying perhaps their magic is golden instead of the green, like the Dathomirians in our galaxy, the Night Sisters of Dathomir had in the known galaxy, what we know so far.
Yeah.
So yeah, Ahsoka sounds like very wild, and there's also these two characters that Thrawn has under him, known as Balin and Shin. Balin is going to be like this Jedi from Order 66 that went to this new beyond and joined up with Thrawn, and Shin is going to be this apprentice that is also a Night Sister. So it definitely seems like Thrawn has some serious firepower, and that's really cool. What are your thoughts on this? Because like Ahsoka just sounds wild. It sounds pretty out there and pretty interesting. I want to get your thoughts on this.
Well, the stormtroopers sound like new toys, but like I'm excited to see the design. But that sounds like new toys. Give them the crack stuff. That sounds really cool though. To be honest, I'm excited to see that. And with the Jedi part, it's you said it was a Jedi that went to the great beyond, correct?
Yeah, he went to this area. It's being described as like the new beyond. It's an unexplored territory.
Mm-hmm.
Up until this point, it hasn't been explored anywhere in canon. And Jason describes that the Force users out here are different and they're more magical, kind of like the Night Sisters are. And he's alluded to the fact that these Night Sisters are that like the actual Night Sisters. So the Night Sisters that we saw on Dathomir are outcast, and they're
Oh,
not the actual like Dathomirians. So that's pretty dope to me. That's pretty cool to me.
that sounds like a Drew Sabayoth situation from Fallen Order. How he kind of went to go learn magic from Night Sisters. It sounds like what this shit is kind of doing.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely does sound like that. And my thing with always when they kind of alluded to the fact that they were going to do a whole universe thing with like the Mandalorian universe and kind of have Thrawn as like the Thanos
Mm.
was like if you're going to have Luke, Ahsoka, you got to have like a capable Force user. And I thought it would have been Ezra. I thought Thrawn would have turned Ezra, or Ezra would have been darker at this point. But what's being described here is Ezra and Thrawn have split ways for a while now, and that Thrawn and Ezra are separate, but also Thrawn or Ezra, excuse me, like hasn't been found yet. So Ahsoka is still looking for Ezra.
Yeah.
But I will also add, and I know like stormtroopers, haha, they can't hit anything, but Jason also talks about the fact that like these stormtroopers like might be resurrected, like might be almost zombies, that they might have stronger capabilities. He's not 100% sure on that, but he
Mhm.
says that Balin and Shin will be hunting down Ahsoka with these stormtroopers, and Sabine will be with Ahsoka, and by the end of the show, Ezra will be with them probably, or even earlier than that. I'm not 100% sure on that. So, I mean, it seems like Thrawn's army is definitely plenty capable. But I want to kind of get your thoughts on this because, like, I've seen a lot of people like very, very conflicted on these leaks and these ideas of like a new unexplored territory with like a new interpretation of the Force. I think this is something Filoni excels at. Obviously, Mortis, I think, is my favorite Clone Wars arc, some of my favorite Star Wars, and that
Yeah.
was new and weird at the time. So I kind of want to get your thoughts. Do you like this idea of like a new like interpretation of the Force and like Thrawn using these people as his allies? What do you think about this?
The Thrawn allies part, I'm a little mixed about. It just sounds like with like these people hunting Ahsoka, it just sounds like Inquisitors again, but just reskinned Inquisitors. If they should have
Okay.
just like, I feel what they should have done if they want to go this route, they should have just had Inquisitors tracking Ahsoka, like just like because I think there's some Inquisitors that we don't know the fates of yet in canon. So that would have been cool. Like see maybe like Ahsoka, like the Ahsoka trying to look for Thrawn, but the Inquisitors also looking for Ahsoka. Ahsoka leads the Inquisitors to Thrawn, and they team up. That would have been interesting. But it seems like they're doing just something like that, but with these new Force users, which I don't mind. I'll have to see it, but it just does sound like a reskinned Inquisitor. But with the
Okay.
magic
Yeah.
stuff, that that's interesting. I have to see it first, like of course, but like it sounds kind of also like the Mandalorian stuff first. Like there's this one true thing, and then there's like Mando's cult of like the outcasts and stuff like that. So it sounds
Mm-hmm.
something like these are the true magic users, but the Night Sisters we know are green magic. They're like the new outcasts and stuff. So it sounds like similar to what they did with the Mandalorian in that. I'm a little skeptical because like I love Thrawn and I want them to be very careful with what they do. Like I own all the Thrawn books and everything. I have this one signed
Okay.
by Timothy's on. 3 of them are signed. So I hold Thrawn close to my heart. So I want to be very careful what they do. But like, I trust, Dave Filoni and everything. So I think he'll do great work with it.
So I gotta ask you then. So it seems like with this, so they're gonna go the route that Thrawn is a full-on villain. Like he's kind of embraced these dark magic. He's kind of embraced these dark side users. And Thrawn to me has always been, and I've read some of like the new canon stuff with Thrawn. Thrawn to me as always was like a Sherlock Holmes type of character, like very calculated, very intelligent, very smart, but never really like heinous. Like he never did anything heinous. I wouldn't describe Thrawn as like an anti-hero or anything. I would just describe Thrawn as like very calculated, and sometimes um he was so calculated that like it could seem villainous, right?
Mm.
And I want to ask, what do you think? Because I think they're going to go this route. What do you think about him just being full on like villain? Are you okay with that or?
Um, I will. It depends. Like, if it depends too. I feel like on the situation of the planet. If like the planet maybe like broke Thrawn, it's like because he's been on this planet. Rebels takes place I think 3 years before A New Hope, so that's like
Right.
he's been on this planet for almost over a decade then because
Yeah.
5 years after he's been on this planet for a decade. So I guess it's possible that it could have broken Thrawn, but at the same time, Thrawn was also on like he was exiled by his people on a planet for a couple of years too. So I don't know. It's hard. I don't want them to go mustache twirling villain. Maybe he's also too manipulating the people, like how we did too in the Legends books with Sabayoth. He's just like seems like we're partners now. He's just manipulating him the whole time.
Right, because he uses Sabayoth to try to kill Luke. And I could
Yeah.
see something similar. Like I think it's kind of similar. He's kind of using the Night Sisters to kind of kill Ezra and Ahsoka.
Mhm.
Um so I could definitely see that for sure. And again, I'm not so well versed in like the new canon, the books with Thrawn and stuff like that. So it's obviously good to have this perspective. But like, do you think that like with Thrawn and stuff, do you worry that they'll kind of make it too close to what happens in Heir to the Empire? Because I think Heir to the Empire is a really, really good story, and I don't want this to be like a carbon copy.
Mhm.
Um, and I think really the most appropriate way to go with this is really in Ahsoka. I would kind of like to see the heroes lose. I would kind of like to see that this magic is too powerful for them. Now,
Yeah.
I think this would be a good replacement because obviously in the expanded lore they use the Yuzon Vaughn, and they couldn't do that. The Yuzon Vaughn would be like that would be ridiculous
Yeah.
to
Like
have
the
that before the sequel trilogy era. Because we know these shows are going to tie into the sequel trilogy era. However you feel about the sequels, like they're going to tie into that. So I want to get your thoughts on this, but I really think because we, to me, haven't had that big like Luke moment yet. I know a lot of people will say like his moment in TLJ is great. Sure, you can think that. I don't think it's great, but we haven't seen like a
Mhm.
great prime Luke moment. And I think what would be really good is if like Ahsoka and Ezra lose badly to these magic users, like they can't combat it. But then you bring in Luke, and Luke is able to save the day. And later, Mandalorian universe projects. Do you think that would be something that would be really good, especially for Luke? They obviously care about the character of Luke because they've used him twice so far. So,
Yeah.
what do you think about that idea?
I think that could be interesting. I don't want them to use Luke too much because I do want like to them to start with with Ahsoka and everything. I think they'll get desperate. Like I want them to get kind of desperate and for them to get Luke. But like everything that we've kind of been naming so far, it sounds like a very interesting plot to a Thrawn and Ezra show and not an Ahsoka show. Because I feel like right now everything that we're hearing is like Thrawn's this plan on this plan on this he's in this. This sounds really interesting. I would love to do this with more like Thrawn focus and Ezra focus, how we see them because there's a 10-year gap. They're gone.
Mm,
I think over 10-year gap a little bit. So it's like
mm-hmm.
it just sounds like too like that we're going into like more like a Thrawn and Ezra show than like an Ahsoka show. It seems like too it's like a little packed. And putting Luke into the show I think would be a little too packed with everything that's going on, new magic. Apparently Barris is still supposed to be in the show. She's still rumored to be in the show.
Yeah, I could definitely see that as a possibility for sure. Yeah,
Ghost Crew.
yeah, it does feel like a lot, like you're saying. I'm not even saying like Luke could be in this. I'm just saying like later down the line, because Thrawn I still think will be like the main villain of this whole thing. Like you'll have like Boba Fett, like you have Mandalorian, like you have Mando, you have all those characters sort of joining in the fray for like one big battle before like the stuff we see in the sequel trilogy era happens.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I mean, I think overall it's we obviously have to see how it plays out on screen. Uh, and I do agree with you. Like, there feels like there's a lot of stuff in the show because you also have to have like an arc for Ahsoka, really, and
Yeah.
also like general audiences really don't know much about Ahsoka because general audiences don't typically watch animated stuff. So I'm really curious to see
Yeah.
how they play that out because you got to kind of explain her story and Her connection to the Skywalkers is going to be big in this. We know Hayden's going to return, so there's a lot to do, and I agree. But I think Thrawn being like the overarching villain and all this stuff sounds very interesting and it sounds very heir to the Empire esque, but not like a carbon copy of it. So yeah.
Yeah. And also, too, I do feel too, instead of Luke, I do think who would be more interesting to see is Leia, because we see in The Last Jedi that she commands fleets. Thrawn's thing is him commanding fleets. So it would be nice to see, like, I feel like Leia too would also make a lot more sense. Like, I would love to see Luke, like, like maybe like the final act, like, final thing, then defeating Thrawn. They have to get to his ship and everything, or they have to, like, get to wherever he is. And, he has the Nogri, I think, yeah, the Nogri is what they're called. Like, he has those because those are also rumored for this show to have
Right.
those back. And like, Luke, helps them. There's like, you have Mando, Ahsoka, Luke, Ghost Crew, everybody, and they go like, team up against them, like, that's your Avengers Endgame moment.
Right.
That way, I feel that would be really good. I feel if they want to go that route, which it sounds like, they are. But no, I feel like too Leia would be interesting to see because, like, we know she's, a fleet commander too, as well as Thrawn. So seeing her lead the charge, like, her and her brother working together, we never really saw that, like, their brother sister relationship. So seeing that, them working together to defeat Thrawn, I think would be really special.
That sounds dope. And then obviously probably Han too, right? That would be cool to see as well. So
Well, that's
the
a fun
big
fact
main.
gone by this time. A dead dad.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that is true for sure. I don't know, but it's definitely gonna be crazy. It's gonna be weird to see how this whole like time period plays out. It's been so far in the new canon, and I think eventually when it's all said and done, I think it might be like my favorite time period in Star Wars if it keeps going at this trajectory, excluding the Book of Boba Fett. Sorry, did not like that show. But yeah, I totally agree with that. And you got anything else you want to say? Want to add?
No, not necessarily excited. I just hope they're careful with Thrawn. I hope Thrawn real close. I hope that he's not just mustache twirling villain, because heir to the Empire, I guess you could say, is like, a cooler character, but like the new Thrawn is just written so much better. It's like Timothy Zahn, I feel like actually has, like, he got more control with what he has now. And he's just turned on to such a great character with like just like great motivations. He's not just, oh, I'm doing all this, like, mustache twirling villain. Like you said, he's like a Sherlock Holmes type figure.
Right. Now I gotta ask: do you feel when you watch Filoni working with Thrawn and Rebels and with Zahn's writing, do you feel a difference in the character? Because
I
I know
felt
a
the
lot of
difference
people say
when
they do.
I felt the difference when he bombed to Lethal. That's when I felt real difference. I was like, that's not in character for him at all. When he bombed Lethal,
Okay,
that was
right.
not in character for Thrawn. Other than that,
Because
though, he
he's
was pretty decent. He lost too
yeah,
much, way too much.
that is very true. That is very true. I do agree with that. But I also heard a good idea that like the first thing that I think probably set Thrawn off, I guess you could say, or maybe you could make the argument made him more villainous, is like the idea that Thrawn lost to the Bendu. And that kind of changed his whole trajectory and made him, I guess, more impulsive, I guess you could say.
So yeah, that I could see that. I guess.
Yeah,
I feel
I'm
like
not
also
sure.
like
Yeah,
they didn't put an emphasis on that. If that is the case, they didn't put an emphasis on that enough that it was the Bendu. Like if they wanted that, they should have put more of an emphasis on, like, oh my gosh, that was like a big thing for Thrawn. He lost it. He kind of just made an angry face and the camera cut away.
yeah, right. Or he was just tired of like the Empire's like because Constantine like screws him over, right? Like he moves the ship out of position, they escape.
Yeah.
He's I guess he could be tired of the Empire's incompetency, and that makes him more ruthless. I guess you could say. But I'm not sure. I do agree with you though. Like there's like because Thrawn, like in the new canon, I remember reading some of those books, and like he's like very sympathetic to his crew. Like he has connections to his
Yeah.
crew. He's not like ruthless, gun ho, that sort of thing. So I do agree with you there. But Filoni, he does this a lot where he'll take characters from books. I mean, he did with Cobb Vanth. He did it with, he changed up Kanan's story, Kanan's Order 66 story. So, like, he's done that. And I understand people have problems with that. But, I mean, if it works for the story, I guess it works for the story. That's my sort of thing on it. But I get it for people who have personal attachments to those characters. So
When in the book trailer too, it's like what you said, how he's tied to the Empire. He does talk to Palpatine in that book how he feels he's surrounded by a bunch of incompetent people that aren't a part of his personal crew.
right, yeah, for sure, for sure. All right, well, I guess now we can move into like the final thing. We're gonna get onto a DC. Oh, that's not the wrong. A DC Trek here. So recently, Variety, I believe a couple days ago, released an article discussing like the DC universe and what's going on with that. Um, so we could start. We don't have to. This stuff is kind of explaining everything with Black Adam, and we don't really need to discuss that because we already know that Black Adam's not going to continue and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But here in the article, they say as 2023 kicks off, DC bosses Gunn and Saffron continue to shift through the rubble and will soon reveal their 3-year interconnected vision for the cinematic universe, which won't feature Cavill's Superman or Wonder Woman at all. And then they mentioned how things could have been different, blah blah blah. But then there was something else I wanted to mention. Um, at the end of the article or somewhere, I think at the beginning here they mentioned the fact that Ezra, yeah, they mentioned it somewhere that Ezra could come back. They're open to the idea that he could come back if he continues his rehab and continues to, or they continue their rehab. I don't want to. I know he goes by different pronouns, but um, so I don't want to misrepresent him and how he wants to be talked about. But yeah, so Ezra doesn't want, or the executives say that Ezra could possibly come back as long as they continue to go through therapy. And I will discuss how that's ridiculous. But yeah, what are your thoughts? And then I want to share this real quick. Gunn responded to those, which I will say I think it's good, and that Gunn does this sort of thing. Gunn debunks this and says he debunks the idea that Wonder Woman will not appear at all. And then he also states that I don't know what's out there about Ezra, but our slate is 8 to 10 years, and we'll only announce some of it this month. So I want to get your thoughts on all of this, really, and what direction do you think DC needs to move in with Gunn at the lead?
Well, first with the Ezra thing, if he comes back, then the company's got to be like there's something going on in there. They put something in their tea, bro. It's like it's not good. Like Ezra should not come back. He needs to be done. Like I said, I don't care how much they liked him in the role. I don't care if he's the best Flash I've ever seen. I don't care if he's the best comic book casting I've ever seen in the Flash. He's like better than RDJ, better than Hugh Jackman. I don't care about none of that. He does not need to be in any more after what he's done. He's done. He needs to tap out.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. For sure, Ezra is like done some of the most like heinous things, like human trafficking, I believe, like kidnapping people, like punching people, like it's just crazy stuff. It's just like repeated offenses of it. And it wasn't until like Ezra was not remorseful at all really for it until they threatened to cancel his Ezra's film. And then Ezra came out with a statement, apologized, and then that sort of thing happened. Ezra's gone to therapy sets, and I doubt you see Ezra on the press tour at all for it. And that's going to be wild, especially since Ezra's the lead of that film. And I mean, you got a ton of good cast of characters in that. You got Keaton coming back as Batman. You got Affleck back as Batman.
Yeah.
You got Sasha Calle as Supergirl.
I really hope they keep her. She looks really good as Supergirl.
Yeah.
I'm to keep her for the new DCU. I think they will? No, but like I really hope.
Yeah, I mean, I think with that, I think that's a good segue into what Gunn's got to do. I've kind of said that like, if you're gonna reboot it, you got to fully reboot it. You can't pick and choose who you keep. And again, I'm disappointed that Cavill's not coming back, and I think the explanation for Cavill not coming back is like, oh, we want to do a young Superman story, so we can't. So, okay. That's just weird. Just say you want new actors. Just don't try to make it like, oh, Cavill can't play a young Superman, or like Cavill's already done it. I mean, Cavill's definitely got a raw deal. I think we can both agree on that.
Yeah.
probably like I would say one of the best casted
Yeah.
superhero characters of all time, with like Robert Downey Jr. and Hugh Jackman, just didn't get anything good. I like
Oh,
Man of
yeah.
Steel a lot,
It's an
but
Andrew Garfield situation. Great casting, terrible movies.
yeah, yeah, I would 100% agree with that. It just more than just terrible movies, just terrible studio execs. Um, I like Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman.
I think she's all
I,
right.
that's not happened. I really love Ben Affleck as Batman. I know a lot of people are mixed on it. Again, I think he's a really good casting.
Mhm.
Um, they really didn't do anything with the character, so like whatever there. But yeah, I feel like a full reboot. There's been rumors that he might keep the Suicide Squad and like Peacemaker, which would be weird.
I feel
I
like
don't.
that'd be too narcissistic. I feel like he wouldn't even risk just keeping just them.
Right, that would be just like nepotism. It'd be like textbook nepotism. Just like keep your own characters. It's
Yeah.
like really, like that would just be really weird to me.
I do think he
Uh,
will keep some of them. I think Margot Robbie's safe because he even said himself Margot Robbie's is the best actress as actress he's worked with. Um, I think the girl who plays Amanda Waller safe. In my opinion, I feel like she's like RDJ. She's like has like a death grip on that character where like you don't want anybody to touch that character anymore. Like she is Amanda Waller, and I feel like
right.
Peacemaker is also safe. I think those are the three of Gunn's characters that are like completely safe.
Okay, so I think John Cena will be back as Peacemaker. I could definitely see that for sure. And he already talked about they're doing a Peacemaker season 2.
Yeah, and Gunn's working. Seems like he's worked close with John Cena too because he's going to be in his new movie soon for Warner Brothers. It's Coyote versus the guys like Coyote versus the Roadrunner. James Gunn he like wrote that, and John Cena's in that, and they work together on that. So it seems like he likes Cena too and likes working with Cena.
Okay, I did not know that. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense then. Um, but I kind of want to ask. So it seems like Gunn and Saffron have a 4-year contract,
Mhm.
and they have this 8 to 10 year plan, kind of like what Marvel does, obviously. Um, obviously, Gunn's been a big part of what the MCU's done with the Guardians.
Yeah.
Uh, but they're going to announce probably the first like 3 years, like Variety is kind of reporting.
Mhm.
And I think for what Variety is saying, because sometimes Gunn will like misconstrue what people report, and it's weird that like he said, "Oh, I don't know anything about Ezra." It's like, really? Um,
Well, I think by that he means like he doesn't know what people are saying about Ezra. I don't think he like
okay, that's fair.
I think that's what he
That's
meant to
fair.
say.
Gunn does like a really good job of like not being like
Too
too
specific.
con- too specific. Yeah, he leaves statements like vague enough for like, oh, okay. Um, but like in my opinion, anytime something like this happens or anything, transparency is just like key. Like I don't care. You could have just waited until you announced all this stuff and then said what he was going to say. But anyways, I think with the first 3 years, um, obviously a Superman project, right? Um, he's talked about that a little bit. Um, I would like something with the Lantern Corps, whichever one it is. You could choose any of them. I feel like that's never been well represented in
They've been too scared to
film.
touch it since Ryan Reynolds movie.
Yeah, yeah, that is very true. That is very true. Any even any of the corpses, I wouldn't care.
Mhm.
Um, because I feel like they could go the opposite direction of Marvel. They can go more with the cosmic stuff, right? Because it
Yeah.
looks like Momoa is gonna play Lobo. So you can go with the more cosmic stuff and then move your way towards Earth. I'd go like the opposite of what Marvel did when they started out with like the Avengers on the Earth and then they went cosmic. You could kind of do the opposite. So I kind of want to get your thoughts on what Gunn's going to do with the first few years of his DC universe.
One, I don't think there's going to be a DCU Batman for a little bit. I think they want
Okay.
to. I think they're going to let Robert Pattinson breathe a little bit. So I don't think they're going to like. I know that sounds crazy. Oh my God, no Batman! But like for the first 3 years at least, I think they want to have Pattinson have like one more movie before they introduce a new Batman. Because for general audiences, it's going to be too confusing that there's two Batmans at the same time. Like oh wait, didn't y'all just announce there's a new actor for Batman? No, we got two universes. Oh, all right. So I feel like they're gonna do Lantern Corps. I think they're gonna do Stewart and this John Stewart instead of Hal Jordan for Lanterns too, because Hal had his
Hmm.
time to shine in the first Green Lantern movie. I think they'll let Stewart do something in this, or they can do a situation where they do both. Like one could be more cosmic based, one could be more Earth based. Like they can station Hal on Earth, John in cosmic. I feel like that would be cool. Um, I do think we're gonna get another Wonder Woman project. Superman and Wonder Woman, I think, are guaranteed, as well as well as Lantern. A Lobo project, I don't know if that would have like who wants to see a solo Lobo project?
Yeah, that's just so. And again, I think Gunn's done a great job with like niche franchise. Like the Guardians are very niche.
Mhm.
They were very niche for a long time before they were introduced in film. I could see it.
I could see a
But I don't.
Superman versus Lobo movie in the future. That would be fun because they fought in the
Right,
comics multiple times. But like just like a
right.
solo Lobo movie, I guess it could be kind of like a bounty hunting movie where we can see like familiar like some cosmic characters like this. I like your idea of them straying more cosmic than going more Earth, like the opposite of MCU. So he can go like maybe that's how they introduced the Lantern Corps. It's a Lobo movie. He's going traveling throughout the galaxy. He gets in trouble with the Lantern Corps, and that's how he first gets introduced to them. That would be fun. Um, and then anything else for the first 3 years? I don't know if they're going to try to touch Aquaman again either. I feel like they're going to try to go for like a different type of Justice League. Like they're going to do like Hawkman, Hawk Girl, Martian Manhunter. I feel like too instead of Batman, Aquaman. I think they'll try to recast Cyborg too. I don't know what the heck they're going to do with the Flash. That I have no clue what they want to do with.
Yeah, yeah.
Because like we can't get another Flash movie like 2 years right after we're getting or it's like 3 or 4 years after we just got this one. Like
And
that's crazy to me.
it'd be a totally like different thing. Like have no connection at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like what Gunn's gonna do is it's just gonna be new. It's just gonna be different. I feel like again they do stay. He does state, or Saffron and them have stated like that there's a big commitment to the Justice League characters, right? But also at the same time, that's what they already did. They already were doing the big characters, except that they didn't do them right. Uh, and I agree with you on the Batman thing. Um, I think it's gonna be a little bit like you're saying, but I do think that Gunn wants to build a universe with a young, and I really think when they cast these characters that they're gonna be kind of unknowns. I really
Mhm.
think, and I'm not good at that sort of thing, anyways. Like casting characters who I think they're gonna play them. I really think they're gonna be unknowns, kind of like what Star Wars does with like what they did with Daisy Ridley and John Boyega. They were
Yeah.
unknowns before The Force Awakens, so I kind of think they're gonna do that thing, and I think that would be really cool.
I know there
Um,
was a throw up name for Superman recently. I saw a bunch of people talking about it on Twitter. I forgot the guy's name. I think his name was like Wolf something or other. Like people were like going for him on Twitter. I think he was rumored for Superman. It's by this like total like bogus source, I'm pretty sure. But like he looked really good for the role from what I saw.
yeah, yeah. Again, I'm not good at that type of thing, typecasting, but like, I would prefer like nobodies. It'd be kind of cool. It kind of be like like what makes I think these characters so special is the characters themselves.
Yeah.
Anytime you get like a big name actor playing it like a superhero, like for example, The Rock, like the selling point wasn't like it was Black Adam, was like The Rock is a superhero.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Uh, so like yeah, I feel like unknowns, and I feel like Batman will be key to set up. And by like the end of these first 3 years, I could see a Justice League film, right?
Mhm.
I feel like that's kind of the thing that they will do. But also, I don't know, because Gunn said it's gonna be like a young Superman story. Are you down with that? Because we've kind of seen that already. Are you like? It's kind of like the thing with Spider-Man. Like you know Spider-Man's origin story. You know Batman's origin story. You like down with that, or like what do you
Yeah.
want from like a first Superman film?
I do think younger is a good way to go for a younger Superman because right now too we're seeing an older Superman with the CW version with Superman and Lois. That's fun to see, but like I feel like younger, like especially too for new audiences and everything, they want to like a new Superman, a younger face. I think would just be the better option for them to go. Um, I don't feel like it's. I feel like it's going to be hard to do because, like I said, of Cavill and everything, it's going to be really hard to replace. But I think it's I think they're gonna try to go more Christopher Reeve early Superman, like super hopeful, like charming. I think they're gonna get a really charismatic actor, and like an actor that just makes you smile. They're just gonna get somebody like really good. I feel like It's gonna be like a total 180 from what they did with DCEU Superman.
Yeah, I think that would be really good. And then also, like a follow up, do you think that like they'll do like a whole like solo films with Batman and like his own universe? Do you think they'll do that, or do you think they'll sway away from that, especially if they want to focus on patents and stuff?
Um, that's a good question. I me, I have a personal bias towards Pattinson. I really like Pattinson's Batman, but from like a business perspective, I'm not sure what they wanted. Like, it's they're in a very tricky situation where the Batman is a very like loved movie, but like
Mm,
they don't want multiple universes at the same time. Like, I think Joker 2 is gonna wrap up that universe. No more Joker in that universe. Like, that's done. So I wonder
right.
if they're gonna do the same thing with Batman. They complete his trilogy and they're done. But like the Penguin show is also still moving forward. That didn't get canceled.
Right.
So I'm really
And there's
curious
been
what they're doing with that.
and it's been talked about this like there's a couple shows that they want to do in that universe with Reeves. And I think Gunn's already established that he doesn't want to touch Reeves' stuff. But
Mhm.
also for like the general audience, I feel like it's be really confusing having two separate things going on. And I'm sure by with Gunn's plan, I don't know if they'll get multiversal by the end of it, if he sees the end of his contract. But like I wouldn't doubt we'll see Robert Pattinson like through the multiverse, the
Yeah.
DC multiverse in Gunn's universe. But that's a while away. That's a decade away.
Yeah.
You still haven't finished like Pattinson's. And I personally love the Batman too. It's besides the Dark Knight, obviously, it's my favorite Batman film. So
Yeah.
like I don't know what they're gonna do with that. I think you just leave Reeves' stuff alone because I think Reeves just understands that side of DC, and then you let Gunn do his thing with his cast of characters, and maybe he doesn't touch Batman for a while.
Yeah, well, and to this a hard thing too because they want to do younger Superman and like I think a younger Wonder Woman. Like it's gonna be hard to do with Batman too because like if you want like oh we'll just do it with a younger Batman. Well, Robert Pattinson's Batman is also a younger Batman, so you're gonna have just like two young Batmans walking around, and they can't go older because they've already said we don't want Ben Affleck anymore, but Ben Affleck might direct something. So it's hard. I would like to see Jensen Ackles, who's like Soldier Boy and the Boys, play Batman,
Mm.
but like that would just also just be too different. You got like a 40-year-old dude and two 20-year-olds playing like the other two trilogies of the Justice League. It's like, oh, okay, whatever you say.
Yeah, that certainly would be interesting. Yeah, I think we agree about the cosmic thing and the corpses, like the Lantern corpses, and a Superman project is obviously big. And do you think now for at least because I feel like they're going to announce the first 3 years, like how many projects do you think we'll get per year, like television and movie combined? Because I'm saying probably maybe at the most. I think for out of the 3 years that they announced, maybe they'll announce about 3 years. I say, I think
Mhm.
they'll only announce 5 films. I don't think they're gonna be like Marvel and have like 3 films a year. I think might be 1 or 2 films a year, and then 1 or 2 shows a year. Probably 2 shows a year. So that
Mhm.
will put you around I don't know like 7 to 10 projects for the first 3 years. Because I
Yeah,
don't think it's gonna be massive.
yeah, I could see that, but like at the same time, they're also doing. DC's got 4 films next year. They got Blue Beetle, Shazam, Aquaman, and Flash. So I mean, I don't see them doing 4 films ever again. The only reason there's 4 films is because all of them got delayed because DC's smart like that. Um, I do see. I see 2 movies, 2 shows a year. I think two
Okay,
movies, two
I
shows.
I think
I
that
think
would
they'll
be
do like
good.
early year, later year, and then like to close the middle gap, they'll do TV shows. So, like winter, like January, February, March, April movie, December, November, October movie, and then in between that they'll have like their shows to kind of like keep the audience from not running away from them.
Yeah, I think that would be a really good idea for sure. And I want to ask, what do you think? Because it would be weird from a business perspective for Gunn to say these films don't matter, right? These films coming out this year.
Hmm.
So what do how do you think Gunn handles that? Because these films very apparently aren't going to matter in a year.
Hmm.
So how do you think they handle this from a business perspective? How do you think Gunn handles this?
Like I said, he could like with the Suicide Squad. I think he could merge some characters. Like Blue Beetle apparently doesn't have too many DCEU references. I
Hmm.
feel like that could probably fold easily into the new DCEU. And I feel bad too for like the actor Zola. I forgot his last name, but like he's from Cobra Kai. It's like this is like first film, like first like big star role in anything besides Cobra Kai,
Right.
like movie. So it's like you're just gonna take that away from him, like just like that. He didn't even got a chance to shine yet. So I feel like they could do stuff like that. I want I it depends on his performance, but like I feel like they could keep him. Like I said, they're probably not, but I want them to keep Supergirl. I feel like that's perfect casting from what I've seen of her so far. That's like
Mm-hmm.
perfect casting. Shazam, Zachary Levi said some interesting stuff online to where I don't even know what's happening with him. Him and James Gunn are friends. So like it
Right.
would feel like kicking your friend in the nuts if you just like, nah, bro, bye. You can stay in the old universe. Maybe we'll bring you back for Crisis in like 10 years.
Yeah, right, for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's weird. I don't know what they're gonna do. I hope it works, right? I hope this like first 4 years, like, because like I was saying earlier, their contract's only for 4 years, so they got to hit off. And if they don't hit, then you have to restart again. So like, and
Yeah,
I trust Gunn a lot. Gunn knows his comics. I'm iffy on him writing Superman.
that yeah.
Uh, I hope he does it direct.
I don't think he said he's not directing. He said he's just writing.
Yeah, which I'm iffy on. I don't know how you feel about that, but
I hope it's not too goofy. Like
yeah,
goofy Superman can be funny, but too much goofy Superman, like I'm good on that.
yeah, right, right. Um, so yeah, I got nothing else to say. You got anything else for this?
No, not really. Like I just hope they keep some decent castings. Like I said, there's no reason to replace Levi. Levi's fine. The whole point of Shazam is for him to age up. So I want him to stay. Because I want Margot. I want Amanda Waller to stay. I like Peacemaker to stay. There's just some really great castings that like I'm really sad to say bye to. Henry Cavill. I am sad. I don't think he really got too much to shine. I don't think he really got his due. But Ben Affleck as Batman, he really never had a chance to prove himself.
Mm-hmm.
I feel so bad. Aquaman can go, I guess. I was never like entranced by Jason Momoa's performance. I thought he was
Right.
good, but like I'm not like, oh my gosh, if I could have anything I could keep in the DCU, I'd keep Aquaman. That's like, oh, okay, well, we'll see you as Lobo, I guess.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. So yeah, I mean, you got any other topics or anything else you wanted to mention, discuss?
No, I think that's all for me.
All right, well, that's going to do it for episode number 86 of Wars in the Stars. Again, I want to thank Stormy here. Appreciate him coming on, being the new co-host here. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun
Thank
for
you for
sure.
having me.
Yeah, no problem. We'll get some good content here to discuss post Bad Batch. Hopefully, we get Secret Invasion and
Yeah.
Mandalorian and that sort of thing. So we'll get some good live action content to discuss. And hopefully Alex will join back up. So yeah, as always, thank you for watching. May the force be with you. May you stay burdened with glorious purpose. We will see you next time. See ya.